Well, I asked, where's the beef? Let's call this for what this is. Oh my God! They are so hopelessly woke. How dare you? That is the intellectual capital of the left today. Give me a break. You are now watching the Daily Roundup. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You have tuned into the Daily Roundup on this, a Friday, March 24th, 2023. I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a little bit about my co-host. Do you know that today is National Cocktail Day? And I've heard a rumor that my co-host is drinking like a demon because the Trudeau Liberals are putting the alcohol tax up 6.3% on April 1st. How dare they? She is the she-devil with a slingshot. She is the Khaleesi of BC. She is Drea Humphrey. How you doing there, Drea?
I'm doing good. I actually didn't know they're doing that. Maybe I should start drinking like a demon.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You know, I mean, it's so miserable, isn't it? I mean, you try to drink your problems away in Canada because of this federal government, but oh no, blackface is going to, kick you in the rear end there too with that 6.3 increase. It's going to be millions of dollars taken out of the pockets of restaurateurs, according to Restaurants Canada. The LCBO says, well, you won't notice anything unless the suppliers pass on the tax. What do you want to bet they're going to do that? So, Drea, the idea of, sitting at night, having a nice glass of wine, maybe a beer, and trying to forget about the misery of the Chinese propped up Trudeau Liberals, allegedly. Yeah, even that's going to cost you something because of climate change, maybe?
Maybe. Well, those prepping, alcohol is a good thing for those who prepping. They like their storage in case things go down. So maybe now's a good time to get your vodka or whatever for that reason.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I wonder if we'll see a run on liquor in Canada like we saw a run on toilet paper in 2020 at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Do you remember that? You couldn't find toilet paper anywhere for several months. So are people going to stock up, or is it a matter of fact that liquor is already so horribly expensive in Canada to begin with? We just don't have the money to buy it. But anyways, enough about my boozy soliloquy. Drea, what is it that we're hopefully trying to do in the next hour?
Well, welcome to the Daily Rebel Live. We go through the daily news, what's hot on the press, and you have an opportunity to weigh in on that with us in a really fun way. If you go to Rumble or Odyssey, you can actually live chat there. You send a chat with a donation, which helps support the reports and the news that we bringing you the other side of the story. So if you do a live chat there, donation of $5 or more, we do our best to read that and make you part of the show. And we just talk about what's going on in Canada and sometimes international news as well.
Yeah. Well, the big news, Dre, of course, is President Joe Biden coming to Ottawa for a bilateral visit. And, of course, I don't know what the over-under line is for if he'll fall down the steps of his of Air Force One like he tends to do. But maybe mission was accomplished that way. I see some video of Jill holding his hand. It looks like the Mongolian death grip to make sure he doesn't go on a wayward version south. There he is.
And he's got the rail and he's got Jill. So.
That's right. Yeah. And evidently Joe Biden announces that he's staying in Canada during his first official visit today. What did he mean by that? Let's roll the video.
We're staying. That's the plan.
Did you have time to get a deal at the northern border?
You know, Drea, why is every statement from this president so awkward? I mean, of course you're staying. It's a 2-day visit. Or did some people think he was going to get on Air Force One and fly back to, Plattsburgh, New York, and watch illegal aliens come in?
Right, and come back. You know, I think he's proud when he has a lucid moment of where he is. And he's like, I know where I am. We're staying here. And he's so proud of himself. But yeah, I don't know. He tries to make jokes, but half the time you don't know what he's talking about. This was short and sweet. So he made it through.
You know, but you raise a good point. He didn't say, I'm staying here in the nation's capital or Ottawa. No. But I'm staying in Canada. It kind of fuels the American stereotype. I know not all Americans are like this, but to them, Canada is just this big pink blob on the atlas. You know, whereas you and I would say we're going to New York or Boston or Los Angeles. We'd never say we're going to the USA. It'd be a specific city in a specific state. But again, here's Joe Biden. Maybe he doesn't know Ottawa is the capital of Canada.
Maybe. I think he's just happy he made it up the stairs. So, like you said. Yeah.
And we should also, well, lo and behold, crowd prevention. A crowd has been prevented from walking throughout Ottawa as Biden's visit brings intense security measures. Now, I understand he's the president of the USA, but I wonder, Drea, we know what the snowflake community is like in Ottawa. Are they going to have a meltdown over this? Because, you know, when Wellington Street was shut down, thanks to the Freedom Convoy, well, they went ballistic. I mean, we saw them testifying at the Emergencies Act and they actually used this term. Some of them are still suffering from PTSD when they see a big rig or smell diesel fumes or hear honk honk, which, of course, according to one Liberal, is code for Heil Hitler. But I wonder if this is an acceptable way of shutting down the street as opposed to what they experienced a year ago, February.
Oh, I'm sure it is. As long as the legacy media gives its stamp of approval, then they're okay with it. It reminds me of out here, there was our largest Freedom Convoy was for the medical professionals that were kicked out of work. And there was about 7,000 people at the City Hall. Everybody was enraged because it extended close to the hospital. Meanwhile, when Greta Thunberg came here and all the students were allowed to just skip school without their parents' permission and go down, they totally blocked the hospital and nobody had an issue with that. So it's whatever politically correct. Whatever's politically correct can shut down the roads.
I can vouch for what you're saying, Drea, because I think that was 2019 and I was in Vancouver to see Greta Thunberg address the crowd. And one of the perverse observations I made was the fact that after that humongous rally was done, so many of the demonstrators or her supporters just left behind their signs. So it's all in the name of climate change and environmentalism. But they have no problem littering. You know, oh, well, she's gone. Okay, I'll just toss it on the grounds of City Hall. Or I think it might have been the art gallery. Is that where a lot of the demonstrations happen?
Yeah, well, that is where a lot happens too.
Yes.
So it's all kind of close. But yeah, it was also down by the City Hall. It was huge. So,
yeah, but
it was just okay.
It was ginormous, and even Elizabeth May was there, and she wouldn't answer any of my questions, such as, why did you get involved earlier that year in a parade and you were driving a Dodge Viper? I think that is a V10 automobile, 640 horsepower.
Wow.
No hybrid, no plug-in EV, no electrical car for Elizabeth May. Somehow she thought that was completely appropriate. So I'm just saying, if you are part of the environmentalist community, maybe you really want, oh, there I am. Yep.
There you are.
There's the video evidence in case people.
Oh yeah, you're at the Vancouver Gallery. That's definitely the Vancouver Art Gallery there. So yeah, it looks like a full house.
But you know what? All I'm saying, Drea, is that if you're part of the environmentalist movement, just practice what you preach. Yeah. Which is to say, why don't you take public transit and buy an electrical vehicle? Why don't you pick up your own litter? I mean, it's kind of odd to see a sign saying "Save the Planet" and then it's disposed as litter.
And then they drive off in an SUV. Like, it's just.
Oh, anyways, We got off on a tangerine there. Now we have some other video. We have Biden sitting down with
More
Trudeau,
Biden.
and he talks of the Canadian-American relationship, which is kind of like we agree on some things, we disagree on other things. I don't know what he's trying to say. Let's try to make sense of it all by rolling the video.
Biden to Ottawa, back to Ottawa. It's so great to see you, Joe. Obviously, we've been working closely together over the past few years on how to build strong economies for everyone in our two countries and around the world, how to continue our fight against climate change and prepare a stronger economic future for everyone, but also how we deal with changing geopolitical security contexts and how we continue the important work of keeping our citizens safe and standing up for our values everywhere around the world. We have no greater friend and ally than the United States, and it's always a real pleasure to be able to welcome you and to sit down with you. Still.
It's been too long between meetings. I think 2016 I was here. And, the one great thing, and I tell other world leaders I meet with when they ask about the geopolitical circumstances of the world, I said, we're lucky. We have Canada to our north, share these values. All the values are the same. We disagree and agree on things occasionally, but there's no fundamental difference in the democratic values we share. And it really makes a big difference. And so it's an honor to be here. We have a lot to talk about, and I think we're gonna get a lot done today.
Mr. President, having what do you have to say to Canada?
They're like, just keep smiling and talking for the cameras.
Well, Drea, when Sleepy Joe Biden states something like we're going to get a lot done, that makes me shiver my timbers, because the very first thing he did when he got into the White House, if you recall, was by executive order killing the Keystone XL pipeline,
Oh, right. Yeah.
which cost so many great paying jobs, which hurt energy independence. So what do you think? And of course, you don't see blackface complaining about that, because that, perfectly fits in with his agenda in terms of the climate change file. And the bonus is he can make Biden out to be the heavy. He can say, wasn't my idea to kill Keystone XL. The president did it. Meanwhile, he's behind the scenes. He's very happy about that, because he's all about killing energy projects too. What do you think Biden means, Drea, by getting things done?
Oh, you're right. I don't think it's in the best interest of Canadians, if I had to take a guess. But, it's not a match made in heaven seeing them together, working together. I thought it was kind of comical, though, when he's like grabbing those notes. Like, I don't, he seemed so focused on trying to get those notes on. I don't know if he needed the reminder of the little piece that he said there. But, only time will tell what comes from this meeting, because usually something always comes from meetings of this. I imagine that people with Biden are sort of sitting on like pins and needles. Like, what is he going to say? Is he going to say like what we talked about, or is he going to go completely rogue? Or I don't know, is he going to spill some sort of secret? So it looks like he made it out of there okay, per se. But Trudeau is just so textbook. He's a good actor. He just says everything like it's all kosher, it's all perfect. And then I want to know what the things are that they don't agree on. I'd like to know what that is.
Well, I think one of the most fascinating files that they're going to discuss is the so-called closing of the loophole for irregular migrants. And this is the scam of the century that's going on, Drea, because there really is no loophole. Once an illegal alien is in a safe country like the U.S., once they arrive in Plattsburgh, New York, and you can't even play the mean Mr. Orange Donald Trump card, he's going to deport me. It's regime change there since 2020. The way the rules are, that you're home free. And all we have to do, but we won't do it, is put up a fence or a wall at the so-called irregular crossings. I mean, kind of pissed off with the language. Irregular, you mean illegal. Don't you?
Illegal.
Yes.
It's not hard to say. Yeah.
So when it comes to the new agreement between Biden and Trudeau aims to curb irregular immigrant border crossings, Drea, as always, the devil is in the details. My suspicion is there's going to be some kind of clause that allows for a certain number of these illegal aliens to cross over easy peasy at regular border crossings. That's what my spidey senses are telling me. So it might be a new policy, it might be a loophole closed, but still thousands of illegal aliens coming into Canada. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're probably right. And they definitely have to discuss that. They've made this commitment that they're going to handle it. They'll probably put up a wall with the widest door you've ever seen that never closes. You know what I mean? And so, oh my goodness. I think we have a good report. Is it coming up or is it already up? But stay tuned for the report on some of what we found on Roxham Road from the great Alexa and Lincoln went out. Yeah, so this is a huge issue. Everybody needs to be paying attention. And when they say that they're going to solve the issue, we need to see, are they really solving the issue?
Yeah, I just want to read the document with a fine-tooth comb, because that's what you have to do when it comes to Biden and blackface. Geez, it sounds like a vaudeville act, doesn't it? Biden and blackface. But we touched upon another wonderful file for these two. They continue to champion climate change, but I think it looks like they think they're still in the 90s, because they're referring to climate change as global warming. But I thought we got away from global warming when you find stats of global cooling instead. That's why climate change, it encompasses all angles of the environmental argument. So let's see what the Bidens had to say on
Biden, I think.
Yes, the environment file.
Well, it's been really warm because of global warming in the United States. So
it's a strange winter.
Yeah, it is.
It didn't get cold right away. It was pretty mild for most of the winter, and then it got really cold in February.
We've had on the West Coast a great deal of rain and a lot of forest fires, and we've got a tough year. More of our forestry has burned to the ground this year than the entire state of Maryland. That's how much it was.
Once again, Drea, we see somebody who should know better conflating climate with weather. So when Sleepy Joe talks about rain and forest fires, I'm sure back in the days of the dinosaurs, when there was no such thing as Homo sapiens, I'm sure there was no rain, I'm sure there was no fire. I mean, what is he talking about?
I don't know. And if you watch a little further, Jill also gets on the global warming thing and says that it's been like the warmest it's ever been. But California has had, record rains, and it's been pretty cold there. So I don't know where they're going, but it does seem like they missed the memo. They're incorporating the whole global warming into everything. I think it's just, they say when you lie, it's hard to keep up with the lie. So I imagine when you have all these narratives that are designed for political purposes and political gain, it starts to get really hard to keep it up, right?
Well, what I always say too, Drea, is that whether it's President Biden or Prime Minister Trudeau or Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum, why don't you practice what you preach? So if we're under such dire circumstances, why don't you get around in an electric vehicle, which you're telling everybody else to use, or better yet, public transit? Why don't you put the steak back in the fridge and have a cricket or mealworm sandwich? But again,
that's the
one
real
law
test.
for thee, and one law for me, right?
I have heard that the Premier of British Columbia has been spotted on public transit. And I've heard that from people who are not a fan of him, that they've seen him on public transit. So
wow.
Maybe he's
right away, I am guessing, was that a photo op?
No. They said they ran into him. They talked to him. He was, so I'm just throwing it out there. I agree. You got to practice what you preach. And I've never heard of any of them doing that except for him, which is David Eby.
Yeah, and once again, when it comes to the file of the best, the Prime Minister's office, Drea, has confirmed that Justin and Sophie Trudeau, they were the two who stayed at a $6,000 a night London suite. Do you know, I mean, well, it never happened, but if I was Prime Minister, if I was any elected authority.
That would be so fun if you were our Prime Minister.
Oh, could you imagine? Oh, there'd be a lot of changes in store. I tell you that. But even if I was a local city councillor, I would never have the chutzpah, Drea, if I had to travel anywhere. All I want is a clean, warm room. Motel 6, $69 a night. That's good enough for me. How is it?
The nerve.
Yeah. How can you justify that in good conscience? $6,000 a night.
On the taxpayers' back. It cost taxpayers a total of $400,000 to get him and whoever came with him down there so he could sing Bohemian Rhapsody and basically spit on her grave. But, you know, you're right. Who would do this? You know that this, not only is it just, it's not the right thing to do, but you also know that this information can come out and you still don't care. I think of Rebel News, and when we travel by the people. Just like he's traveling, and we always make sure to do the most like modest accommodation, and we make sure not to waste that money or squander it or anything like that. $6,000 a night. How do you justify that? And it just shows how out of touch, you know, he is.
I mean, that must be one hell of a hotel room, and that doesn't include room service. I don't think. And you know, you're quite right, Drea.
It included a butler.
Oh, well, at that price, definitely.
Forget room service. You have your own butler. Jeez.
So he can stand outside the room and tell people not to knock on the door. He's a personal do not disturb sign. But you know what? You make a very good point. We crowdfund our missions, and to me, that's the most honest way of fundraising we do. And we are always looking for the absolute lowest accommodation fees, whether it's a B&B or going on to Hotwire, finding a last-minute deal. We would never disrespect our viewers' money by living high on the hog like this. And this is just absolutely despicable. One other point on this before we get to an ad, Drea. Again, it's the media double standard, right? I remember in the Harper cabinet or caucus, Bev Oda going abroad, the $16 orange juice. That led to our political demise. That was front page news. How dare this woman bill a $16 glass of orange juice to the taxpayer? But where is the outrage in the mainstream media, Drea, when it comes to a $6,000 hotel room?
I know, they're always asleep when it comes to Trudeau. I mean, even with the election interference allegations from China, yes, there are a lot of Canadians paying attention, but there are so many Canadians like eagerly waiting for Trump to be arrested. And I'm like, why are you looking over there? We have scandal after scandal here. Like, huge things are happening. So it's just, again, I take it back to really the media. I think that's how popular, how powerful the media is, because whatever tone they pitch is the tone that the average person who's probably just busy with their life, caught up in whatever they do, that is the vast majority's opinion. They just take it, put it in, and then that becomes their identity.
100%. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is the bottom line. And blackface, he's funding the media. Meanwhile, his chief rival, Pierre Poilievre, he's promised to defund the media. So when it comes down to the nitty gritty, in terms of these media people having a job in what is really a sunset industry. Let's face it, if these subsidies weren't around, Drea, they would have gone under years ago.
Oh,
so
for sure.
I think when you have that inherent bias, that blackface is funding your paycheck, I think we're going to let it slide a little bit. So just absolutely despicable. Well, we should have an ad break. And there's some more Transanity to report on the other side of the ad break. Oh, and by the way, in case you thought Earth Hour is completely extinct, no, there's some progressives out there that want us to turn off the lights for an hour, even when it isn't Earth Hour. You won't believe this one.
Yes, flashback.
So Roxham?
Yes.
Roxham Road?
Yes.
Bon, moi je l'ai appris sur internet.
You came to Mexico and did you ask for asylum?
Un amigo de nosotros está aquí en Nueva York, se fue para allá y ya le dieron el permiso para trabajar.
Stay in your own country. I'm here with a purpose.
I'm scared too. I don't know what happened.
There is a process to determine whether someone is a refugee. There are steps to go through.
Those who are seeking to go somewhere else, not we're pushing or forcing, if they're seeking to go somewhere else, we are helping in the reticketing process.
There's so many homeless here, and they're bringing people from other countries where there's people here struggling with mental illness.
The issue starts at our southern border, where the U.S. has declined to enforce proper immigration.
And you allow them to live in a hotel, but yet the major crisis of homelessness is very, very big.
So I'm in Roxham Road and I'm waiting actually for Lincoln J to arrive. He just arrived in Plattsburgh and he took a cab.
Just like that, I'm in the back of a taxi cab waiting to go to Roxham Road.
Why wouldn't you ask that? You're running across the border.
We have to go to police when looking.
Well, what a great job our colleagues Alexa and Lincoln did, Dre, and it kind of ties into what we were talking about before the break. Where is the mainstream media doing this kind of investigative journalism?
Yeah, they're on Twitter. At home, you know, and that's what I was going to say. It's great journalism. It's going to take the people right there to see what has been happening, you know, so easily under the leadership of today. And so you won't get a look like that on the state-backed media. That's our promise to you, is to bring you the other side of the story. And Alexa and Lincoln did a great job doing that. So proud of them.
100%. And I would argue most people in the mainstream media advocate for a pipeline of illegal aliens to come into Canada. This doing a documentary report like Alexa and Lincoln did, that would be contrary to the narrative that they espouse. Now, speaking of which,
it's racist. Remember, it's racist.
Yes, that's right. Now I see. This is interesting. Niagara Falls, Ontario, to ask Ottawa for a cap on number of hotel rooms for asylum seekers. Now, just this morning, Dre, I was talking to a good guy in the mainstream media. He was going to a press conference in Niagara Falls by the mayor of that city. And evidently, the feds have snatched another 500 hotel rooms, meaning the total is now just over 2,500 hotel rooms. Wow. And it is still the shoulder season. The tourist season, it really kicks off during the May 2-4 weekend. But this is a serious issue because I don't think these migrants are going anywhere soon. And the problem is Niagara Falls is the very definition of a tourist town. Yeah. I mean, it's the #1 tourist destination in Canada. And when you don't have any more rooms for tourists, that has a ripple effect, because these are the people going to the attractions, going to restaurants, buying the souvenirs, all that stuff. There's only 16,000 hotel rooms in Niagara Falls. So this is getting serious, and there's so many people that live in Niagara Falls whose livelihoods depend on tourism. Right. Drea, why in the world, I understand Montreal, Toronto, the shelters they're filling up with the illegal migrants, but when it comes to putting them in other cities and towns, why in the world would you choose Niagara Falls to begin with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know why you would, like you said, it's such a huge tourist spot. Why would you choose it? And maybe they just didn't think forward with the plan, like how long are they going to be staying there? But, the hotels are probably happy. I'm sure they're getting a pretty penny. It reminds me of the quarantine hotels, one that was in Richmond, for example, the Gateway Pacific Hotel that went from not being a quarantine hotel to obviously being one after they fired and axed so many, mostly, people who travel to Canada the legal way, I might add. They fired so many of them, mostly women. And so it came out later that they just made so much money. So who cares about who's losing their job? It's the same thing here. Who cares about these, restaurants and these attractions that are just waiting for people to come during spring break? I mean, think about that.
Oh, I know. And I understand there's usually in the month of February, there's an old timers hockey tournament. It's huge. They have it in Niagara Falls typically because they can get cheaper room rates. But of course, with the supply going up or the supply, disappearing, the room rates going up. So it's even affecting events that take place during the shoulder season in Niagara Falls. I'm just, I've lost my train of thought. I'm just so outraged.
Blown away. Yeah, you're speechless from it. I mean, I guess they probably picked it based on where they think they would get the contracts for whatever reason, the easiest.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, Drea, you raised a very interesting point. What are they getting paid? I am sure these hotels, if I'm the hotelier, bring it in. 100% occupancy and likely at the full rack rate. And by that, I mean the full price of the room, no hotelwire.com discounts here. So for them, absolutely. And here's the atrocious thing. We've tried to get, information from Immigration and Citizenship Ministry regarding what are the costs. And they won't give those costs because since they're dealing with private operators, there's confidentiality agreements in place, much like, the $7.1 billion Volkswagen battery factory going to St. Thomas. They won't say how much taxpayer dollars is going towards that. I think that's absolutely outrageous. It's our money, right? And so what if you're getting into a deal with a private sector operator? You've got to tell them, listen, we have to be transparent. I know you don't want the figure out, but our shareholders are the taxpayers, and yet, Drea, they won't reveal that data to us.
Exactly. Sorry, I can hear my son. Data.
Okay. Well, the next thing on this is the file that never goes away, Transanity. But finally, good news to report, folks. Here it is. World governing body votes to exclude transgender women athletes. This is a step forward, of course, Drea, because as we've long lamented, the only sports in which men and women compete in are equestrian and auto racing, the horse and the automobile being the equalizer. The idea that you have a biological male pretending to be a female and going into wrestling or mixed martial arts, weightlifting, you name it. It is outrageous. And finally, to see something like World Athletics saying, this is it. When it comes to elite competition, you got to be a biological woman to compete in a women's sporting event because, contrary to popular belief in certain circles, trans women are not real women. Sorry to break it to you. This is a good thing. We need more governing bodies of sports, Drea, to follow this and exclude men who are pretending to be female.
This is huge news, and I hope you're right. Like, I hope it encourages people to do the right thing, to not cower down to this small percentage of people that think this is okay, but the very loud percentage of people. I think that what they're saying is, if you've gone through puberty as a male, then you are not allowed, if I'm correct. So, I mean, I guess if you're one of the young children getting transitioned, you might have a chance, but they're following science here. This isn't transphobic. This is scientific. It's not fair to compete against someone who's on all these drugs that are going to give them an advantage. So why would it be fair to compete against biological males? So yeah, athletes will also have to reduce their testosterone levels below the new limit for a minimum of 24 months across all events to compete, double the previous time. So yeah, I'm excited about this. Women's rights are just down the drain.
100%. And Drea, I would go a step further. Basically, whatever sex you were at birth, that's it. Puberty blockers, testosterone levels, all of that aside, no. The female division is for biological women only. And so that, trans athletes are not shut out, what I would suggest, Drea, is a third division. So you have male, female, trans. And whatever you are, whatever you identify, that would be the circus sideshow division of sports. And hey, I might even tune in to check out.
It would be interesting, right? It would be interesting. And this is unfair because you don't see it happening in men's sports because of the biological disadvantage that the trans person would have there. So, this just needs to be nipped in the bud. I think this is a huge sign of hopefully what is to come, because I think people are really starting to go, okay, this is going way too far. Women are just being pushed out of everything. I say it again, even makeup. When a woman goes to look at what makeup they want to wear, they have to watch a man now putting on makeup. And half the time the man has a beard on. Like, what is that? What is for women anymore? It's hard to find anything.
I'll tell you what it is, Drea. Yeah. They do this in the name of diversity and equity and inclusion. You know what it really is? It's misogyny. It is a hatred of women. If you think that allowing a biological male to compete with biological females is inclusion and diversity, no, that is a hatred of biological females. And you said something very important. You don't see it the other way around. You don't see a woman transitioning into a male and then going into a male sporting event. And by the way, I am of the opinion that if a woman transitioned into a male and then went into male elite sporting, I'm fine for that to happen, because that would have to be a super female athlete. I'm talking like Wonder Woman or Power Girl here, right? Because to compete against males with an inherent disadvantage of female, and I don't mean that disparagingly. I mean, when we look at males and females, they're equal, but they're different. And males have bigger muscle mass. They have better cardiovascular processes. The list goes on. So, like I said, to your point, if a woman wanted to transition to a male and go into male wrestling, all the power to her, because she is one hell of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, well, even some men, though, might have an issue wrestling her as well. So that, I don't know, there's a lot to it. But I mean, this is huge news. I'm going to read a chat just because it's kind of for people who are tuning in. If you want to chat with us, because we're chatting away, you can do so on Rumble or Odyssey by doing a paid chat there, and we try to read them. We have a couple here. So AMT60, thank you. A usual donates $5. Thank you very much. And says, have you heard of the Great Canadian Awakening, Whitby Christian College on May 5th and 6th? I haven't heard about this. It says pastors, lawyers, doctors, politicians. Would Rebel be able to cover it? David, have you heard of that yet?
I haven't, but I'm sure that's Canada Christian College, and our dear friend, Dr. Charles McVitie, he heads up that college. And, you know, and I call him a dear friend because that's what he is. You know, when we have our rebel events, you have the Antifa types and their allies doing things like phoning a hotel or a conference center and saying, if you allow that to go through, we're going to set off a bomb, for example. And it scares them into deplatforming us. Dr. McVitie, both when he had his college in the city of Toronto and now in Whitby, has always welcomed us with open arms. And, you know, for us, there's no reason to shop around because that stage he has, it is absolute state of the art when it comes to an audio and visual presentation. So I thank the viewer for putting it to our attention. Maybe somebody on the team knows about that. That's news to me, but sounds like something we would that we should cover for sure.
For sure. And we have another chat here. This is from Memory Hole, donates $5. Thank you so much. My solution for irregular immigrants, give them some Metamucil and send them back from wherever they came from, which is the U.S. So, you know, I'm for send them back to the U.S. because they were already safe.
Well, you know, and here's the other thing. I mean, if they had to stay here, because just this morning, Drea, I got an email from a viewer who lives in Niagara Falls, and he says when you go to like the libraries in town, they're sort of, you know, very busy with migrants who are just sitting on chairs because they have nothing to do. And that got me thinking, you know, we've had a hell of a snow season this year in southern Ontario. What about implementing, while we sort out who's who in the zoo, so to speak, a work fair program, i.e. you get up in the morning and you do some work, and maybe it's shoveling snow, for example, right? What's wrong with that? But apparently that's too impolite. So the flip side is they just sit around lingering all day. That doesn't sound very productive to me.
No, and we got one short and sweet one from Asia Sky Media, just says respect, exclamation mark, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow, I thank you very much. We could all use a little more respect these days. You know, and by the way, as I alluded to before the break, we should talk about, actually, before we get to that, this just in, folks. Sorry to disappoint you. NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh has not grown a spine. He says the NDP will not trigger an election over foreign interference concerns. This guy's despicable. Can he at least say the real reason, Drea, why the NDP won't trigger an election? And it's two things. One, the NDP war chest is depleted. They don't have the millions of dollars needed to go to another federal election, the third one in 6 years. And secondly, Jagmeet himself, he's ragging the puck. He's got to make it till 2025. That's 6 years of service. That means the full MP pension. Because, you know, Jagmeet, he likes the Armani suits, the Rolex watches, the BMW M3s. Yeah, no plug-in hybrid for Mr. Climate Change there. So that's the real reason. But I'm sure Jagmeet has a whole menu of word salad to explain why they don't want an election as opposed to telling the truth. And I'm not sure if do we have any video, guys?
He's been doing a lot of videos on his Twitter.
Okay, here's this clip. Let's listen to the great one.
Mr. Speaker, enough is enough. Every day new allegations come forward about political interference that erode the public's trust in our democracy. It's becoming more and more clear to the public that the Prime Minister must have known about these allegations. Communities are at risk of being stigmatized. We need to clear the air. So will the Prime Minister do the right thing and allow his MPs to vote in favor of our motion today for a transparent, independent public inquiry, yes or no?
Hear, hear. Hear. Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the Leader of the NDP for his question. We obviously share his concern about the importance of not stigmatizing communities in Canada. I think all members of this House, Mr. Speaker, know that our government wants to have a respectful, nonpartisan, fact-based conversation around these allegations, around how we can work together to further reinforce our democratic institutions, to ensure that foreign interference is something that is always countered by the government. It's something that we've done, Mr. Speaker, since we formed the government, and it's something that we'll continue to do to ensure that Canadians can have confidence in our democracy.
Unbelievable. You know, first of all, Drea, two things. When Jagmeet Singh says enough is enough, is he speaking about how the majority of Canadians look upon him and his party propping up this corrupt Liberal Party? Secondly, isn't it amazing how the narrative changed so much in just the 3 weeks we've seen since these allegations of Chinese interference began? First of all, Blackface said, if you criticize an Asian MP, you are racist. Yeah, coming from Blackface himself, right? And then it was, you know what? We've heard the people. We're going to get a special rapporteur. Oh,
a family friend.
Yeah, it's a fancy name for an advisor. Yeah, and as you said, a family friend. And then yesterday, Han Dong, one of the alleged beneficiaries of Chinese interference, he finally was convinced by the Prime Minister to step down. Gee, Drea, do you think Blackface is committing Asian hatred by making Mr. Dong step down? Because that's what he was saying 3 weeks ago.
Exactly. Well, and I think with Jagmeet, he was backed into a corner. It's like they have this sort of like best friend pact between the NDP and Liberals, but he had to go hard against this. What other excuse would you have to not go hard against it? But if you notice in much of his videos and his posts, he usually makes this distinction between, okay, we are against this, but we still hate the Conservatives. So he'll say this whole, like, we need the public inquiry, but the Conservatives. Like, he kept pointing the finger at the Conservatives at the end of everything he said about election interference, instead of really just focusing. He was accusing them of delaying the motion and things like that. So I'm glad, and I was slightly hopeful that this was a sign, the cards are falling and maybe the coalition will come to an end. But as you said earlier, no election. Now, on one hand, I think there's no goal to try to win from the NDP. They know they can't win, so it's not their time. So they have to just play their cards right on what they think is the best move. And as you mentioned, there's not a lot of money. There's been a lot of money spent on these elections. But do you think this would be the best time for the NDP, if there was ever a shot to win, for them to call an election or not?
Well, I don't think they have a proverbial snowball's chance in hell of winning. That's one of the reasons for the reluctance. Even if their war chest was flush with money, Drea, I think thanks to this farce of Jagmeet propping up the Trudeau Liberals all these months, the NDP, I really believe, is not a credible party anymore. And also, let's face it, when it comes to far left policies, the Liberals are eating the NDP's lunch on this file.
That's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're really, they can't win. They don't have the money to fund a legitimate election campaign. And again, if I'm Jagmeet, I'm thinking, keep ragging the puck till 2025. Need that pension.
Yeah.
I got the eye of the tiger on that year.
Just had a baby. I got a baby.
That's what it is to me. And you know what? We're running out of time because I know the big boss man needs the studio at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time for an important interview. But one thing I want to get to, if you thought it was dead, no, Earth Hour, kind of like Jason Voorhees, has come back from the grave. There is a school in Mississauga today, Drea, celebrating Earth Hour, except that Earth Hour falls on the last Saturday in March. But so the idea is they're going to turn off the lights, turn off the computers. I have railed against Earth Hour since its inception, because what happens, Drea, again, talk about virtue signaling and optics eclipsing the truth. In Ontario, for example, most of our energy is clean burn. More than 50% is nuclear, then you have hydroelectric, you have gas, you have wind, and then there's a little bit that is still coal generated. But when you turn off the lights, right, and you start lighting up candles, the majority of candles in Canada are made out of paraffin, which is an oil byproduct. So paraffin contains, benzene, ethanol, formaldehyde, and a whole shopping list of other chemicals which I cannot pronounce. In any event, you are actually contributing to a negative climate when you turn off clean burn electricity and start lighting up candles and starting bonfires. But don't tell that to the virtue signalers at Earth Hour, Drea.
I know, it's so unfortunate that in school kids are not actually learning the truth. They're learning whatever, again, the agenda is at play. And you're right, I didn't know all that about the candles, but it's not surprising to me. And it's just, somebody needs to go in there. We need the David Menzies to go in there and go, kids, you're making it worse. Then they'll really cry. They're so afraid. But, and also just turning it, like, how long are they turning off the lights? Does it say?
Oh, 1 hour. And it's supposed to be from 8:30 to 9:30 on a Saturday. So, first of all, you kind of lost the hockey fans on that because they want to watch the game, right? But, you know, like I said, Dre, I've been railing against this. And the last time I did an Earth Hour report, it was in 2020 when the pandemic had just kicked in. And I tried very hard to celebrate Earth Hour. I have some video evidence. You know what? I really don't like partying like it's $16.99.
I think it looks like a good place to put a condo development. In any event, I'm going to go into the woods, turn off the illumination that's coming from my V8 powered truck, and try to see how much fun I get by laying down on a blankie and lighting up a candle and celebrating whatever remains of Earth Hour.
You're so crazy, David.
Oh my goodness gracious, folks, let me tell you, I am deep into the woods, far from civilization. And you wouldn't even be seeing this image of me if it wasn't for my trusty flashlight, which, of course, by the rules of Earth Hour, I've got to extinguish so I can light up my candle. But I'm telling you, this is like something out of the Blair Witch Project. It's so dark. I'm all alone. It's like when I lost my virginity. Anyway, let's light up the candle. Okay, folks, I hope you can see me. The candle's lit. And it's very, very quiet in here. But as long as I have this candle lit, I can see, well, a few inches in front of me, and it'll keep me warm. I hope.
So there's your Earth Hour. I'll tell you, Drea, I left my dog in the truck. It was barking its head off, my dearly departed golden doodle, Dexter. It had more sense than I did. It couldn't figure out why the master wasn't ensconced in a nice warm truck with nice headlights blazing, as opposed to going into the woods where there was probably many a coyote at large. Drea, last word goes to you, my friend, and then we have to get out of the studio, unless we have any more super chats.
I was going to say, last word is going to go to Laird Kintyre, donates $5. Thank you very much. Says, I am a trans woman and I hold conservative values and trans issues. Why can't Rebel discuss trans issues without mockery and insults? You don't help the cause. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Laird. I don't think I'm mocking anybody, really. I'm just... In my opinion, I'm just saying it like it is. So sorry you feel that way.
I think what Laird doesn't understand is that he and me, we're very much alike. I love Halloween. The difference is I only celebrate it on October 31st, and Mr. Laird celebrates it every day of the year. So if you want to live your life as a pretend woman, I have absolutely no problem with that. Go for it. My issue is when this kind of ideology is brought into the schools, brought into the libraries, i.e. drag queen story time. That's where I draw the line, Drea. But if Laird wants to dress up as a woman 365, 24/7, I have no problem with that.
And I don't think it's easy. If you're genuinely struggling with gender dysphoria, I know that would be very hard. And I'm not poking fun at that at all. But it should be about equality and not taking over and forcing people to think what you want them to think.
Thank you. Well, I'm getting the signal from super producer Efren.
We gotta go.
So thank you so much, Drea, for co-hosting. Thank you to the audience for tuning in, especially those, including Laird, that gave us a financial donation. Much appreciated.
Thank you.